Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Matt Aaronworth. I am the Assistant Superintendent for Blackstone Millville Regional Schools. And if you are joining us this evening, you are aware that we are currently searching for our next high school principal. This evening, we have three candidates with us who are going to share a bit about themselves with you and then open up the forum to questions so that they can answer anything that's on your mind. With no further ado, I am going to turn this presentation over to our first candidate, Adolfo Costa. Adolfo?
Thank you, Mr. Aaronworth. I really do appreciate it. Once again, I do want to thank the Blackstone Millville District for the opportunity to share a little bit about myself and my approach to school leadership. I'm very excited and very honored to be here. So I am currently the principal at Cumberland High School. I've been working with that district for 7 years, four as an assistant principal and 3 as the principal. The great thing about the job there as an assistant principal was that the structures in Cumberland really allowed me to be focused on teaching and learning. So it only helped to support my growth as a school leader. Prior to taking on educational leadership, I was a teacher at Davies High School in Lincoln. And it is a career and technical high school serving the surrounding communities. There, I noticed how a school can grow simply by the types of programs they offer their students. My personal education is that I am a graduate of Rhode Island College, and then I received my school leadership degree from Providence College back in 2013. Some other things about me that I would like to highlight is that in the past, I've been able to work with some very inspiring individuals. In 2013, I became an assistant principal at Cumberland High School, and we were basically a brand new leadership team there. A few years after being there, a couple years after being there, my principal won the National Principal of the Year award, which only meant more work for me. Because as he was off traveling from different states into different types of ceremonies, we were left to run the school. But again, it was only an opportunity for me to grow. Another thing that I'm very proud of is since I've become the principal at Cumberland High School, I've really tried to establish an environment that allows for shared leadership among all stakeholders. And the academic council, what we call the administrative team and the department heads at our school, really make some significant decisions, of course, based on some of the feedback we get from students and parents, but I appreciate living in an environment like that where we come together, we collaborate, and then we move the school forward that way. The other thing that we've been able to do under my leadership at Cumberland High School is really expand opportunities for students. We have students meeting graduation requirements in ways that they did not before, and I'm proud of that. For me, school should really be about helping students and families meet those goals that they've established for themselves. And we've definitely moved in that direction. In terms of my relationships with students and faculty, I am a person who feels that relationships, the way we treat one another is extremely important. I remember sitting through those classes, those courses at Providence College where there was a person that I must have had 4 or 5 classes with, and all the time she would say, it's about relationships. It's about relationships. And I heard it so much. Now that I've been in a leadership position, it truly is about relationships. You want to move students in a classroom, it's about the relationship they have with their teachers. You want teachers to move a school, it's about the relationship they have with their leaders. And if you want a community to have trust in their principal, it's about the relationship that leader has with their community. And so I feel that that's a tremendous strength of mine. And one other thing I just wanted to highlight really quick was that leading during COVID, any leader will tell you it's been quite difficult, but I'm proud of the work that we've done. And we haven't sat back and just accepted things the way they are. Our school is actually going through a schedule change now just to be able to service students better. when the data says things just don't seem right, then we have to make a shift. And so I've been proud of the types of decisions we've made to really help our students learn during this difficult time. I would just like to share one other thing, and I would assume that it's a valid question that folks in the Blackstone-Millville community would have. And I just want to respond to, so why would I be leaving Cumberland, and why would I be interested in coming to a district like Blackstone-Millville? One of the things that I lead in a district of 1,500 students and over 140 faculty members. And I'm finding success. I know I'm finding success, but I feel that sometimes a district that size kind of hinders your progress in terms of building relationships with people of that community. And a smaller community is appealing to me. And so when this job was posted, I went on and I learned a little bit about Blackstone-Millville. And since that time, I've learned a lot more, especially through this process here. And I know that there's been some leadership shifts that have happened in that district with the hiring of Dr. DeFalco just a few years ago. I read through the school improvement plans and the vision for this system, and it really speaks to me. I also know that the Blackstone-Millville district, especially at the high school level, is facing some challenges, especially with school choice in Massachusetts. And so that question needs to be answered. How do we keep students in our district, right? And also just the fact that looking from some of the social media accounts that exist, from students, from clubs, activity, the band, sports, your community, you're a community with lots of pride. I drove up there last weekend. I went to go see the high school, and that rock in the back, that's really cool. That's cool how, and I would imagine students wait for the opportunity to be able to design that rock the way that they want to see it. And so why wouldn't anyone want to be a part of a community such as Blackstone-Millville? So that's a little bit about me. And I welcome those questions that I'm sure people have for me.
So, Mr. Costa, you actually answered the first question, which was what drew you to BMR? So I have another question that I will read for you. For many years, students have chosen to attend other high schools, vocational or school choice, rather than stay at BMR. Over the past 3 years, our school district has worked on improving the amount and quality of AP courses, electives, and college prep courses so that students will stay at BMR. The one factor that has not been addressed is sports. I realize that a child's education is the most important piece. However, many students are choosing to leave because of sports. How or what would you do to help strengthen our sports teams? How have you ever dealt with this situation?
Yeah, so that's a difficult question to answer. It's a very valid question because high schools are where, like, that's that social. High schools are also an opportunity for students to socialize. They look forward to the high school experience, and part of that is attending athletics. Have I had experience with that? I'll be honest, no, I haven't. At Cumberland High School, 60 kids will come out for the boys soccer team, way more than needed on a team. But at Blackstone-Millville, with only 400 students, it might be difficult sometimes, right, to field a competitive team. But I don't think that stops you from promoting your programs. I think one of the things that's so important is really promoting the programs that you have and promoting the successes of the program. And sometimes that success might not be the result of a final score, but that program, that maybe the success comes from how students within that program are interact. We all know that teams become even tighter communities. And we need to encourage that. We need to encourage that. Also, a part of that is really to invite the community to these events. One of the things that we've done in the past is those community sports. We invite the younger people to the events that happen at the high school. So we align those youth players up, and then we come out in between those youth players. So having a youth soccer night or a youth football night or whatever the sport may be, a youth field hockey night is important. And I would also encourage that. So for us, we want students who are younger really to say when they're at home, someday I'm going to become a Charger. That's what I want to do. But that needs to start very early. So promoting those athletics to younger students who then will say, that's what I want to do is a big step to take in terms of solidifying some successful opportunities for students within sports. But you got to build early on, and you really got to promote the sports very strongly.
Thank you. The high school has been working closely with Project Lead the Way and our neighboring local school districts to expand our career readiness programs and opportunities. What is your experience in establishing and implementing career pathways for students?
So once again, that question will also, the response to that question will also support the need to try to keep students within district, right? To try to keep them from leaving to go to other schools. One of the things that I've done in my 3 years as the principal of Cumberland High School is we've actually developed these career pathways. Currently, we have 300 students within our district that are members of our career pathways, but also we have approximately 45 out-of-district students now attending Cumberland High School's career pathways. So our enrollment, we've actually seen an increase in our enrollment. And Cumberland High School, like Blackstone Millville, at one point was losing students to other schools. For us, it was charter schools. But we've kind of reversed that. We also have a PLTW program, and they're not establishing these career tech programs also come with some burden on the district too. So we have to be cautious about that. As students progress in the career pathways, all of a sudden they grow and teachers become dedicated to those pathways. Then there's a need for more teachers because those courses that come later in that pathway or in that progression of courses, they tend to be smaller enrolled. But I think that's important, and the priority should be to keep students from Blackstone Millville within the district, and developing those programs has worked for us, and it will work for you as well. Then the other thing that begins to happen is you begin to attract, and if there's room at Blackstone Millville to allow some people out of district to come into the school system, then that begins to happen. It's a question I asked my assistant principal today. What is the projection for out-of-district enrollment for next year? So in 2 short years, we'll go from 8 students who are out-of-districtly enrolled. Next year, we'll be approximately at 70. So in those 3 years, and it's not me, I know this interview is about me, but my team, we've been able to establish career pathways, and we really have to gauge the interest of students and community needs. If we put a pathway in that really doesn't, where no interest exists, we're not going to grow that pathway very far. So it really needs to reflect the interest of the community and the students.
Thank you. How will you track and monitor the success of our alumni, and what will you do to support them?
That's a really good question. So one of the things that I currently do is I do track the success of our alumni, but We do it for different reasons. It's interesting that you asked the question that way. How do we continue to support alumni? We do it because very often we want to hear from our alumni. We know that it's hard for students to sustain in college, and right now it's a little bit more difficult. We spend lots of time having conversations with our graduates to determine how well did we prepare you for the next challenges, so we can revise our own offerings for our students to make sure that they're prepared for the challenges of college. Whether it's something as simple as being on your own, there's, are we preparing students for that independence that they will see when they get to college? In terms of supporting students who have gone on, who might be struggling in college, I'll be honest, I've never thought about that in terms of a postgraduate coming back and getting support from our school. The one thing that I think we will always be is we will always be connected to our school. So at least opportunities for students to come back and remain a part of the school are important. One of the things that we do at Cumberland, and unfortunately, we have not been able to do it over last year because of the virus, is I know that on that last day of school that we have right before Thanksgiving weekend, students want to come back and visit. And prior to me becoming the principal, we used to send out emails and make sure teachers knew no visitors were allowed in the building on that day. And that became a little bit, that's not the environment we want to establish. So what we do now is we actually invite them back. We house them in one location, and we ask those students not to please go around the school, but they stay in one location, but we allow them back earlier. So this way, teachers don't necessarily have to fly out of the building because it is the day before a long break. There's that opportunity for teachers and students to be able to communicate and talk about their new experiences.
I apologize. I'm just pulling up my next question.
Mr. Aaron, that's okay. That question only sparked like so many questions for me of how the community is supporting students and other, who've moved on. It's so interesting.
So what do you see as your role in the town of Blackstone and Millville? Can you share some evidence from past and previous roles that highlight examples of this?
Sure, thank you. So when a school leader is usually going through an interview process, very often one question that's going to be asked is, what is your vision for a school? So in the past, I always felt prepared to have a response to that. What is it that I thought a school should look like? And I definitely have some personal thoughts on that. I think schools should be places where we help students meet goals. I think schools should be places where we prepare students for their next step, not what we expect our next step to be. And when I became a school leader, the whole push was every student is going to go to a 4-year college. And that's just not true. It's not only true, we know that not every student's going to go to a 4-year college. We know that that's not the goal for every student. That's not the goal for every parent of every student. Some of them own businesses. And so I've shifted. And the reason why I've shifted in terms of this thinking is that I really believe that my role as the leader of a school is to support the community's vision for what our school should be. So if the Blackstone Millville's community, if their vision is we want 100% of our students to go on to a competitive 4-year school, then it's my job to help the community get there. If my community, if the Blackstone Millville's community is really about maintaining school, a program of studies, courses that align to students being able to do many different things, then that's what we need. That's how we build a school. A perfect example is this. I'll talk about a student at the higher end of academic records. So this student is very interested in math, has always been very interested in math, independently has taken both a calculus 2 and is now interested in taking a calculus 3 class still as a high school student. And I resisted the plan because the structures that were in place just simply didn't allow for it. So I'm following our rules, right? These are the rules. What about equity? What about equity? But I needed to be reminded that sometimes equity and equality, they interfere with one another. And so I need to go back and consider the needs of this particular student and their aspirations and their goal. And I went back, had a conversation with the team, we explored it, and ultimately I changed my decision because I felt that while we had particular school structures in place, this was impeding this student meeting their goal. Another part is that very often when we have certain graduation requirements, community members will reach out and they'll talk to us and they'll tell us that, I understand that the SAT is a requirement for graduation, and participating in the SAT at Cumberland High School is a requirement for graduation. But for this particular family, the goal was that they were going to follow the footsteps of other family members and become an electrician. And again, it isn't my school vision, it's what the school community needs. So I needed to go back and reflect. And now I'm desperately trying to change our and I haven't gotten much movement yet. I fully admit that, but I think our schedule interferes with us being able to offer our students opportunities to participate in apprenticeships and internships and really go out and learn from the community. If we can't offer the opportunity for a student to become an electrician at Cumberland High School, how do we create that opportunity? And so those are some of the things, and those are some of the ways that I've shifted in my thinking, because once again, when the question is, how do you support the community? That's my job, to support the community. I need to learn more from the community, and sometimes that takes time, but eventually we want to get the school to be something that parents know that by their students going there, they're going to be able to achieve the goals they've established. And the truth is that might also help. Once you begin that culture, all of the students want to go there. They know that there's going to be lots of consideration given to a student's individualized learning plan and us meeting their goals.
So similar, we have two questions that are almost the same. How do you engage students whose interest in school is not a top priority? And the other one was, how do you engage students who are less interested in academics? So you spoke a little bit about that. I was wondering if you'd like to elaborate more.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's true of every single high school, right? This is something I have to do, not necessarily something I want to do. What we did at Cumberland High School is we began to transition our program of studies. Basically, our program of studies are all the courses that we offer, and we began to tailor them more towards student interest. So now a student who attends Cumberland High School, because we've been able to add significant amount of courses, they can achieve credits like there's a certain number of English credits students need to have. There's certain number of math courses that students need to have. We've built a program of studies that really allows for students to make choices and how they meet those credits. If a student likes horror stories, they can take a horror stories course to meet their English credit. If a student feels as if they are very much a person who can relate to those who fight against our government, they can take literature as a catalyst for change and learn about people who've done those types of things and achieve their credit that way. And we've done that with math. We've done that with all of our departments. The other thing that we've done is we spend a considerable amount of time, and I sense that this is not an issue in Blackstone Millville High School from speaking to your students and teachers. It's probably a strength of yours, but I also think spending time building relationships with students is also very important. When students relate to their teachers, or when students feel trusted by their teachers, they're more apt to move forward in those subject areas that they might not be interested in. I've never found a student who is completely against education. What they are is most of the times they're not interested in what they're learning right now, and there isn't that connect between the student's interest and what the student has to offer. So dedicating some time to that could really help that student. The other thing is as I spoke a little bit before about our schedule, if the Blackstone Millville schedule allows for students to receive education in other ways, I support that. We have students that have become even teaching assistants within our own school because they have such a strong interest in a particular department. So we're also promoting opportunities for students to learn in areas that interest them.
Thank you.
And yeah, and there you go. In a district like Blackstone Millville, it's so appealing to be able to really focus and get to learn about each individual student. At Cumberland High School, 1,500 students. Can I tell you I have a course that meets every kid's interest? I probably do not. You know, it's a big school, and so it's appealing to work with a smaller district and help students build an interest in school and meet their goals.
To that point, how do you elicit ideas for new courses, and how do you engage teachers to get involved in the curriculum?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think with every year, right, before we really disclose which course is going to be offered, there needs to be that opportunity for teachers to submit ideas for elective courses. So what I do is I actually send out a form, and there are some specific ideas that there's specific information I'm looking for teachers to provide. It can't just be simple like we should have a course in, we should have a tennis course as a part of our PE offerings. Well, I want to know why. So, and how does that course meet the important standards that we need to achieve? How are they going to, what's the plan for assessing within that course? And I like for teachers to gauge student interest. Most of the time, in my experience, when teachers are offering a course, they've already solicited that interest from students. Most of the time, students are the ones saying, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, we should have a course like this. And then they bring it to the attention of the administration. And then there's a process that we sit down, we go through, we evaluate, and we sit with the department head as well to discuss the feasibility of having a new course. One of the things that we have to be careful about is with every new course you have. So if with every new course you have, you begin to filter students out more. So class sizes begin to decrease. So in full transparency, I am supportive of an elective heavy program of studies, but with that, it's not necessarily always the most cost efficient route to take. It's easier to have less courses, more sections of a particular course. But again, if the goal is for students to be interested, I support the inclusion of more electives. And very often, and I'll give a perfect example, very often administration is going to suggest a course, but most of the time, I want to leave it up to the teachers to make decisions about what courses they feel. They know the students the best. They know the students better than administration. What courses they feel students would be interested in. And I'll give you an example of courses that administration might want to include. We have a very rigorous 9th grade English course, and we feel that the student readiness for that course was not always there. And if we start students in and we start students in a course and the gaps are too big, we're never going to overcome those gaps. So I felt it was more important for us to include a course that really meets students from where their starting point is, and start there and begin to close some of those gaps that way. So they feel more confident, they feel more accomplished, and all of a sudden learning begins, or you see learning, more learning than them starting at such a position where there's such a large gap that struggle right begins from day one. So that's the type of course. We had a teacher a couple of years ago who said, Mr. Costa, I feel that students are really interested in World War II, and I think we should have a course specifically designed for around the Holocaust. So we actually have a Holocaust Studies course. That course starts out with 2 sections, 3 sections. Now I have one teacher teaching every section, and it's now beginning to spill over to other teachers because students are interested in that course.
So, knowing the size of Blackstone Regional High School, what ideas do you have to promote school spirit and instill school pride?
Yeah, so I love this question. In when we started when I started as the principal of Cumberland High School 3 years ago, I'll fully admit that our school spirit was already on an incline. Cumberland High School was coming from, some years that people were very concerned about that building, but that school has been completely transformed. One of the things that you do is, and what we did in 2018 is through social media, I began to promote the great things that were happening in the school. That already had begun with Twitter years before with the previous administrator, previous principal. But what happened is, especially for kids, I know us adults, I still go on Twitter and I still want to follow people on Twitter and what they have to order. I think it's an opportunity for me to grow. I just don't find that students are on Twitter as much as we hope. And parents are going to follow what the students are doing. And so in my first year, I walked into a student government meeting at Cumberland House of Pizza. I remember this very, very clearly. I sat down and a student turned to me and they said, Mr. Costa, we got to start on Instagram. We want students to see what it's a way to communicate with students. And I was like, so you guys want to start on Instagram? I'm not on Instagram. I don't know how to use it. I'm very concerned about using it. It's very easy. And within that meeting, I learned how to use Instagram. Not only did I learn how to use it, there in that spot, the students set up an account for me. And they're like, all right, but we don't really have anyone following. They're like, don't worry about it. Leave it up to us. So the handle was CHS Clippers. They put it out there. Before I left the restaurant, I had 200 followers. And now I have over, I would check my phone, but I feel that's inappropriate right now. But I think we're up over 2,000 followers on our Instagram account. And what happens is, and when you want to include your alumni too, like previous question about alumni, students don't go away. Students continue to follow the great things that are going on. And through that, it's really about promoting your school. It's about messaging, but also promoting your school. And we have done an exceptional job through social media by promoting the great things that are going on in the school. The other thing that we've done is, and I think this is an important step that we took during my first year as the principal, is we do host an open house for all of our new students. But our open house is really a celebration of the great things that are going on at Cumberland High School. When you attend not a virtual open house, but a real open house at Cumberland High School, the band is performing in the foyer. Our chorus is singing in the foyer. We schedule those times. We deliver that schedule to our community to come in and see what they're doing. We have all of our activities and our clubs are set up in the cafeteria as a fair. And then we have a huge athletic fair in our wellness center. We put lights out, signage everywhere. We have student representatives for each one of those activities. And we really make it about the community. We invite the whole community in. It's mostly for our 8th grade students or our rising 9th graders. But we really use that time to really promote the great things going on in the school. And it's been very successful. We've had people come to our school and said, I went to an open house for my other kids' college. It was nothing compared to what you guys are doing. And so we put a lot of thought into those things to continuously be promoting the school, whether it's through school events or whether it's through social media accounts. Right now, with one of my assistant principals, we just had a conversation with the superintendent's office, and I'm sorry, not the superintendent's office. He's aware, but through the mayor's office, the mayor of Cumberland. And one of the things that we're looking to do this year, because we're so restricted in what we can do inside, is we want to do an Arts in the Park weekend at Diamond Hill State Park, where once again, we're going to schedule different events and bring the activities we would normally do inside, outside. We don't want to lose the opportunity. We want our community to remember how great our school is. And so those are some of the things that I would aspire to do if they're already not being done in Blackstone Millville.
You mentioned this briefly. How do you engage the parents and community in the education of our students?
Thank you. So I've developed this plan for if I were to become principal of Blackstone Millville, and I shared it with some people in Blackstone Millville about this plan moving in, and there's 4 phases to that. Part of phase one is really to get to know the community a little bit. And so with a later start date for this position, it doesn't mean that I don't begin to connect myself to the community right from this moment. And it's hard to do right now because there aren't a lot of things going on. So attending spring athletics outdoors, probably still a possibility for that. But in the winter indoor, it's a little bit more, especially since it's restricted. But attending those events and making yourself visible, I'll be honest, at the beginning when I took over school as a school leader, as an assistant principal, I was always nervous to introduce myself, but you've become more comfortable with that. Now I'm extremely comfortable with that. Sometimes I would go to an event and hide out in the corner of the event. That's not who I am anymore. So I think that you need to really become part of that community and go introduce yourself, and also open yourself to conversations with family members. We know that at the high school level, parent engagement sometimes is difficult. Attending PTO meetings is sometimes difficult, but activities and events are a great place. And so I go with 2 things in mind. I go to support our students and just be a fan, whether it's being a fan of our band or of the chorus or of a team. But I also go to solicit feedback from parents. And I got to tell you, even with my own children, I would be at like a club practice, not even connected to the school, and maybe in East Providence at a field, and kids from Cumberland would also play on that team, and parents come over and they'd have communication. And sometimes they want to come over and they just want to say, hey, the email you sent out the other day was really clear. I really appreciate that. I understand fully. And then there will be times where parents say about communication, they might say, hey, over communication, too many messages coming right now. And I would have to explain that it's a tough time of year. But then sometimes there's deeper conversations parents want to have. Now, when it's about staff members, I always caution them and say, this might not be the appropriate time to have this particular conversation. But I think making yourself available. And the other thing that I'm extremely interested in doing is, and I've done this in the past, is holding this type of forum with parents to enable them to ask questions. And this just doesn't happen when you're hiring a new principal. I think that like at the beginning of the year, like so September comes, let's say there's still some COVID restrictions in place, provide that forum for students to be able to ask questions. And so I would do that going in, but it would really about be me sometimes asking questions of the parents so I can understand better what the community's expectations for the school would be. And once parents know that, hey, if I reach out to Mr. Costa, I know he's not only willing, he wants to have that conversation. Over time, that only increases with other members of the community.
Under your leadership, what do you envision for BMR in 5 years? As a parent of an eighth grader deciding between BMR and BVT, what could help him choose BMR?
So I think if that kid only knew that, and I'm not saying that this is not true in any way, but from an outsider's perspective, I want to know, I want that family to know, and I want that student to know that we have their best interest at heart when we're making decisions, and a decision made today could impact a student 3 or 4 years from now. So it's important that we're careful with our decision making, but we want both the family and the student to know that we have their interest at heart. But I think for an eighth grader, they want to look for opportunity, right? I started out by saying how important the social culture of a high school is. And my heart goes out to those, especially those seniors who lost their springtime last year and who've lost basically their whole year this year. But the social aspect of high school for students is very, very important. And I know that I might not have answered that question fully about sports because it is a difficult question to answer. And maybe a group of people can answer that question better than I can by myself, but it's my job to support that. But if we're cutting programs, if we're not adding programs, if we're not adding opportunity for students, then all of a sudden that student may make a decision to go somewhere else. And I get it. I've looked up what is so attractive about Blackstone Valley Tech and some of the other high schools that Blackstone Millville competes with. And first and foremost, those facilities are beautiful, right? So is there a way that we can look at the campus of Blackstone Millville and just improve it slightly to give it a different appeal? And I'll give you an example. We've worked hard at Cumberland High School to really change what our school looks like. So we have a brand new awning sign. When you're driving up the road to the high school, there's a beautiful lit sign now, which the community has received so well. And then we've ordered the college post banners. And once the time comes, and right now we have so few kids in the school that we haven't put them up yet, and we are going under some construction. But our school is going to have these college banners on all the posts all over the place. And for us, sometimes we think that's small in scope, but that's important for our community members. The feel of the feel of a campus that holds so much pride. And you guys are there. You guys are on the way there. But sometimes those changes really do impact decision making. But again, it for a parent like myself, I want to know that the school is offering programs that's going to help my children, my son or my daughter, achieve the goals they've established. But then there's that whole social aspect of high school that we can't lose sight of. It's very important for our community that those opportunities exist for our students.
So, Mr. Costa, your time is coming to a close, but I will give you another minute or so to convince us why you should lead BMR High School.
Well, I appreciate that opportunity so much. So all I can say is this: hiring a principal at any level is very, very important thing for a district to do. I think the superintendent is such an important position to hire for, but the principal sometimes stands out in that community just a little bit more because they're working more closely with students and families. And what you don't want to do as a district is constantly be going through this process looking for your next leader of your building. And I've been at one school for 12 years. I've been at another school for 7 years. And what I can say is this: truthfully, I'm hoping that my next stop is my last stop. And so by committing to me, all I could say is I would be committing back to the district for the long haul and to support the students and the families of your communities. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you again for your time, Mr. Costa.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us if you are just joining us. And again, we are here with candidates for the high school principalship. And right now we are going to meet Gina Flanagan. I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, everybody. I'm so very honored to be here tonight. I know this is a very important selection for your high school principal. If I may, I'd like to share with you a little bit of the visual as I go through my presentation. I'm going to turn over my screen right now, and hopefully you can see me as well as see some of the stuff that I wanted to present for you all this evening. So I'm hitting this. Give me 1 second, please. Okay, I hope everybody is able to see the screen that I've shared. Again, thank you so much for having me tonight. You know, throughout this process, I've learned a great deal about your high school, and I've met some really wonderful people along the way, particularly your students. And I want to thank everybody for treating me so warmly. Most importantly, though, one of the things that I have really gotten out of this experience is that there is a huge commitment within your high school and within your district to provide your students the most first-rate education possible. And I hope throughout my presentation tonight and answering some of your questions, you'll see that the foundation of my work in education for almost 30 years is also focused on that. I hope as we go through this final selection tonight that you'll see me as someone who is always going to be an advocate for our students and always work on their behalf, as well as someone who works really hard to provide a safe and supportive learning and working environment for everyone. So I wanted to also share with you tonight a little bit about my personal background, as I feel like it really gives you an understanding of who I am as both an individual and as an educator. So please indulge me for just a few minutes. I'm originally from Miami, Florida, born and raised there. My mother is Cuban American and my father was a World War II veteran. I always talk about them because they were really hardworking and courageous people, and they really instilled in me and my siblings that commitment to service. One of the things I also want to share with you is many years ago, my husband passed away with cancer, and we had two beautiful daughters, and there they are on the screen for you. And I bring them up because they're both college age right now, and it has been a wonderful opportunity as a principal to go through that experience, because I think it's only enhanced my devotion and my understanding of what kids really need in order to go on to college as well as the workplace. So wanted to share that with you as well. In terms of my professional experience, as I mentioned earlier, I've been in education for almost 30 years. Half of my career was as a teacher, and half of my career has been as an administrator. I've also taught at the elementary, middle school, and high school level. I've taught advanced placement courses. I've taught general education courses, and I've also been somebody who's taught special education courses. So I think that perspective is really helpful as a building principal to understand the journey that our students are taking. I followed my husband's career, and we traveled to various parts of the country. So I've been able to see best practices as they apply to various parts of the country. And again, I think as an instructional leader and helping teachers coach them into enhancing their craft, I think having that perspective has been incredibly beneficial as well. In terms of my educational background, I always say that I'm someone who loves learning and loves learning about learning. So my bachelor's degree is in political science from Barry University in Miami, Florida. I have a master's in educational leadership from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. My doctorate is from Boston College in the area of educational leadership, where I spent 3 years on my dissertation focused on 21st century learning. And then right now, I'm currently finishing up the Certificate of Leadership in School Management at Harvard University. So again, I think it's important for a principal to model learning, as it is really the crux of what we do. I have been really fortunate throughout my career to work with some amazing educators who've done some amazing things for students along the way. While I was in North Carolina, we were one of the very first one-to-one laptop schools in the country. And we had a real deep focus on deeper learning, as well as preparing our students with the skills needed for college and their career. And as a result of that, we were able to improve our students' scores on their state assessments by 22%, increasing the proficiency and advanced rate for our students. And we were awarded by the North Carolina Department of Education as a school of distinction, as well as an Apple Computer Distinguished Schools. My work with my teams in Massachusetts have also produced some great things. We focus a great deal of literacy at the high school, and as a result of that, we saw that 98% of our 10th graders scored in the advanced proficient rate. In the last 3 years, we had all students passing. So again, that focus on academic literacy and rigor really has paid off, and I'm fortunate to work with some teams that are really committed to that. One of the things I've done a great deal of throughout my career too is presenting on various topics that are relevant in education, both at the state, local, and national level. I've presented on topics related to 21st century learning, but I've also presented on cultural responsive classrooms, as well as creating positive school environments. I've also served on various state and local committees that are on relevant issues related to digital technology and education, as well as committees that advocate for inclusive and equity in our classrooms as well. There are 4 very consistent elements of my leadership that I'm very proud that I've worked really hard on. One is to create that culture of excellence. Secondly, to ensure that our school community is always providing a safe and supportive learning and working environment, and creating meaningful and productive opportunities for students and staff and parents to collaborate and share. And my most important focus has always been the best interest of school. So creating an environment where our students are always at the center of everything that we do. In terms of creating a culture of excellence, I feel that all of us in the learning community, whether it's students, teachers, and myself, must always push ourselves to be the very best version of ourselves that we can be. So our students must be provided the very best learning experience, and our staff really has to be committed to exploring best practices to help get our students ready for the college career and the workplace. And that's an area of mine that I really feel is my strength and passion. I think that in order for any of us to maximize our potential, we really are best served when we learn and work in a place that is safe, supportive, and respectful of everyone's differences. So my teams and I have always focused on creating a positive and responsive school climate that fosters the health and well-being of all our stakeholders. I think at the heart of creating a safe and supportive environment is giving people meaningful opportunities to engage with their community. And so for students, we work to make sure that our students exercise their voice and choice in their education whenever possible, so that they can become responsible members of society. And for our parents and families, this means to provide them not only with relevant, up-to-date information about their individual student, but also have an understanding of what's happening in the larger school community. And I think those practices make people feel valued and partners in the education. The slide that I have in front of you are just some examples that I've utilized to bring members of our community into our schools, whether it's speaking with our students or serving as judges on our senior projects. I think that a school community is very much enriched when we have students connecting within their community. This is also an example of a magazine that I create for our parents. I usually do that once or twice a month. And not only does it have information about things that are happening at the high school now, but I also strive to provide our parents tips and advice on how to navigate the high school experience and how to navigate the adolescence experience as well. So that is a little bit about myself. Again, I'm incredibly grateful to be here tonight. I hope that through the course of our dialogue back and forth at this portion, that you're able to see my commitment to our students and to creating a place where everybody feels welcome and is able to succeed. So thank you for that. I'm going to unshare that now. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gina. So our first question is, with your academic background, why principal and not more of a central office administrative role?
I do see that at some point in my career that will be the trajectory that I take. But I will tell you this, I've dabbled in central office, and while I've enjoyed it, I love the challenges that position. Obviously, you have great influence from a bigger picture. There's a lot of great work to be done at the principalship, and I think you have an incredible impact on the day-to-day functionings of how students are being prepared for life in their career. So I wouldn't rule that out, but right now I'm really happy with the idea of continuing my work as a building leader.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So over the years, we have had a number of students who have chosen to attend other high schools, vocational or school choice, many of them because of various courses.
Mm.
Sometimes, however, our students are choosing to leave because of sports. How or what would you do to help strengthen our sports teams? Have you ever dealt with this situation?
Yes, one of my roles in my former position is I served on the Pioneer Valley Interscholastic Athletic Conference. So I was an executive board member. And my role on that was kind of exactly what you're describing is working with other principals and athletic directors throughout the region to find ways which we can keep kids in sports, because for many kids, sports is a way to keep them engaged also in their learning experience. So when they're surrounded by positive influences, when they're surrounded by coaches that care, and I think that that kind of trickles into the classroom. So I would definitely would hopefully be able to engage in committees that are related to athletics to help promote better services to our kids in that area. I think that also hiring quality individuals to run our programs is key too. I always look for coaches who not only are well versed on the sport, but also really have a deep understanding of the adolescents and are really committed to not only getting them on the field, but also having them be successful in the classroom and in life. So those are just some things that I would do. I have been part of very vibrant athletic communities in the past in North Carolina. I think many of you probably heard the term Friday Night Lights and seen that show. I lived that. And so I know that when our kids are proud of their school in that capacity, it really rejuvenates the entire school community. And I think that's important as well.
How do you engage students who are less interested in academics?
So one of the things I think is important to acknowledge as not only a building leader, but as a school community is that there's a pathway for every student. So there will be students who are incredibly focused on, going down the trajectory of college, but there are some students that might not be a good fit. And we have to really help students maximize their potential so they can make that choice for them. We don't want their academic progress to be the decision-making of that particular choice. So if a student is passionate about a trade or a vocational, I think that schools should very much help them get there. I think that one of the things we need to do more of in high school is having those personal conversations with students to really understand what is it that their passion and interests are, and not just doing it their junior or senior year, but doing that as they enter. And so one of the things I've worked with my guidance staff in my previous high schools is really charting out those conversations and opportunities to kind of lay out the plan so that it's not such a surprise when we get to junior or senior year. So having those conversations, exposing our students to a wide variety of courses that range from the academic, but also they're focused on career and planning in that area, I think is also essential, because that's how a student develops their passions and interests.
So you spoke briefly about the careers. Our high school has been working closely with Project Lead the Way and our neighboring local school districts to expand our career readiness programs and opportunities. What is your experience in establishing and implementing career pathways for students?
So like your district, I've also been a part of a Project Lead the Way school district, and we wrote a grant to really create a full engineering program, a 4-year program for our students, because we felt that the introduction to STEM related courses was really lacking in our building. We really wanted to up the ante in that area. So I have a lot of experience in that area. I think that, one of the things that is so important in terms of developing that kind of mindset for students is also exposing them to the greater community. What's in our community that our students can get engaged in? One of the things that I brought to my former high school was something called the Senior Project. And essentially what that was is students spent the entire senior year in their English class researching and developing thoughts on post-secondary plans. And so what that meant is that part of that process was that they needed to partner with someone in the community that was related to an area of interest that they wanted to focus on after they left us. And I was very proud that some of my students actually got into colleges because of the people that they paired up with, or they got a job immediately after high school because of the person that they, partnered up with. So I think, getting out there with the community and inviting them in to see the great work that our students are doing is not only good for the community as a whole, but it also benefits our students as well.
How would you describe your leadership team, and how might they describe you?
My leadership teams in the past, very first and foremost, were very collaborative, and we are always, always, always focused on what's best for the student. That's the center of our work. I think also I've been really fortunate to work with people that are very creative. They think outside the box and not necessarily take that one size fits all. We take a very personalized approach to meeting the needs of our students. I think that my leadership team would describe me also as very collaborative and creative, and that I am often someone who is open to new ideas, willing to take new different approaches to doing what's best for our students. I've said it in my former process of this interview that I try to be a yes person. So when someone comes to me with what they think is a good idea, and it's got research or some kind of best practice related to it, and I feel that it's in the best interest of our students, I think that's great. And I think we should go for it, because I also feel that, our students are watching me, they're watching our staff. And so I think they really benefit when they see people who are being creative and who are taking risks and are putting themselves out there to be the best that they can be. So I think those are some things that I've been fortunate to work with staff. And I think that's some of the things that my staff would see in me.
How will you track and monitor the success of our alumni, and what will you do to support them?
One of the things that I've done in the past in terms of tracking alumni is to make partnerships with some of the local and nearby colleges and universities. And one of the things that we do a lot of is trying to get our students to as I mentioned earlier, getting exposure to some of the local colleges and universities so that they have a little bit more informed decision making, but also have a better understanding of what that experience will be like. I think that we've done a great job in my former district is in bringing back some of our alumni. One of the things we did in my last district is we had a day in which we had former students come back and speak to seniors, but also the freshman class, share with them their experiences, things that they can expect. I think that benefited our students, but it was nice to, keep those close ties to those who've come through the hallways as well.
Knowing the size of Blackstone Millville Regional High School, what ideas do you have to promote school spirit and instill school pride?
Well, I actually love the size of your high school. It's actually the smallest high school that I've worked at. And, one of the challenges of working at a larger high school is that those personal relationships, whether it's with staff or whether it's with students, it's often hard to cultivate when you're a larger school. Despite that, though, we had incredible school spirit. And part of that is just the activities and the ways that you engage students. So things such as promoting students' successes, whether that be one of the things I like to do in my role as principals is I take my phone with me often and everywhere I go. And wherever I see someone doing something cool or something, really worth sharing, I snap a picture, and you'll see throughout our hallways just various photos of some of the great things that are going on in our building. We've also had school spirit days. We have a lot of activities for our students so that they can get together in a real positive way with one another and in a safe way and just really celebrate some of the great things that are happening. So we have theme days. One of the things I am most proud of is my first 3 days initiative that I collaborated with my staff on. And from the very first day of school, we set a theme for the school year. So a couple years ago, it was good vibes only. And so the first day of school, all our staff are out in a kind of a tunnel. They create this tunnel in the walkway, and the kids come by, and there's high fives and there's hugs. And we really set the tone from the very first day that we're glad that you're here, and this is going to be a great year. And we have a opportunity at the third day of the school year, the third day of school. We have a school-wide picnic in which, we all come. It's only for an hour, so it doesn't really have a real big impact on, the learning that's going on that week. But it's such a way for us to all come together, get to know each other, celebrate, who we are as individuals as well as within our class. So I know that the power of school spirit is that it helps students feel connected. It helps them feel that they have others who care about them, and gives them an opportunity to get to know each other in a less than, a more informal way, not only with their classmates, but also with the administration as well as staff members. So those are just some of the ways that I think we can promote school spirit.
How would you maximize a small school's budget effectively to ensure students and staff have what they need to be successful?
I think the first thing is making sure that we're really focused on the goals and the vision of the schools, because one thing we don't want to do is misspend money in ways that aren't relevant to what we're trying to promote. I think that high school budgets also have to be very collaborative and transparent. So for example, when I work with my department chairs every year to establish next year's budget, it's all of us, we come together, and I ask my staff to provide me a list of things that they need to enhance the learning experience, whatever content area that is. I ask them to connect it to their curriculum so that we ensure that what we're asking for does have a meaningful part of this process. And I asked them to go back with the departments, have that conversation. And so we meet as a group, we talk about some of the things that are being put forth, and collaboratively we decide, what things we can hold off on, what are some things that we need right now, what are things that we can share. So we really take a real, direct approach and a very specific approach to our budget. And one of the things I feel I've been able to do successfully in the role of principal is I'm always looking for ways in which we can get grants or other ways we can supplement the school budget so that we can utilize department money as well as building-based money on things that probably are more expensive and more imperative to the everyday enrichment of learning in our building.
How would you engage the parents and the greater community in the education of our students?
So as far as the community, I talked a little bit about the senior project, which it was something that we had at the end of the senior project. The students had to present to various people within the community. And so that was one way to bring members of the community in so that they could see what our kids are doing and also play an important role in that. We also periodically, I will host forums at our high school, and they're student driven. So students, for example, last year, they wanted to have conversations about school safety. And so I invited members of our community that had roles in those various areas. So for example, our chief of police in our town was present. We also had our local state congressman present, and we brought them in so that they could speak one-on-one with our students and really get an understanding of what their concerns are. And our students could hear what the work that they were doing. So it really created a connection between school and our local community. I also have been in schools where we are very much focused on community service. And so our students engage with, whether it be the senior center or whether it be with a local preschool, our students are always involved in organizations and businesses within our community. I am very, very cognizant of the fact that when you have a positive relationship between the school and home, great things can happen. So I do put a lot of emphasis on developing that area. I do communicate in a variety of different ways with our families, whether it's, as I mentioned before, our monthly magazine, whether it's our Connect Ed system. I do a lot of posting on social medias, whatever I can to reach the majority of our parents. I think that's really, really important. But I also think that it's important to get our parents into the schools in ways that will help them navigate the high school experience. So I've hosted in years past a forum or an introductory workshop on social media, so our parents can understand like what are the different platforms out there, what they should be looking for, how can they best protect their students from those various issues. We've had a lot of focus on social emotional programming for our parents. So I've brought in school psychologists or national psychologists to come in and talk about how to navigate the various issues that our kids are facing, whether it's anxiety, depression, eating disorders, a wide variety of issues that kind of tend to the social emotional piece. So I think the best thing I can do as a principal is not only communicate with the community as a whole, but also educate them about some of the things that are happening within the high school setting.
Under your leadership, what do you envision for BMR in 5 years? As a parent of an 8th grader deciding between BMR and BVT, what could help him choose BMR?
Well, I think the most important thing, obviously, is providing a curriculum instruction that is top rate. And so making sure that our courses that we offer students are relevant, that they're engaging, that they represent the world that they are going to be facing. So creating a first-rate curriculum is important. I also think that goes hand in hand with making sure that the learning experiences that we provide our students are also engaging, that they're innovative, that they are instructional activities and techniques that are also promoting 21st century skills. So we want to see our students being able to think critically. We want to see them collaborating with each other and being very creative. So making sure that our curriculum instruction is an example, not only within the community, but within the state. I think that, you know, that is one of my strengths, is really truly working with teachers to enhance our educational experience. I also think that we have to also be very aware of the social emotional aspect of our students. So as a parent and as a principal, I want to make sure that every student feels good about themselves when they are in our building, and so they go home and they lead productive lives. So programming that kind of relates to that, I think, is essential. I think that parents and community members want to see that partnership to be strong, to be authentic, to be something that is focused truly on the student and making it as personalized as possible. So I think that when you have a strong curriculum and instruction, and when you're making those connections with kids in a really meaningful way, I think people are going to want to be a part of your high school.
What do you know about the towns of Blackstone and Millville? And what would be your top priority if you were principal? 2 questions combined into one.
So I visited your community. We used to have a place in Rhode Island, so we would often go through. And so I know a little bit about the community. I know it's a small community. I think that one of my strengths has been in all the communities that I have served is really making a conscious effort to be visible and get to know all the people that contributed to the school success. So for example, whether that is creating partnerships with our local law enforcement. One of the things I've learned is that it's really, really important for kids to see see safety within their community. Our law enforcement officers as people who they can be trusted and that are really working in their best interest. So creating that partnership, I think, is really important. I also believe that, working with various other town departments, such as Department of Public Works, is important, because we want to make sure that we are very connected to those individuals who work on the district's behalf to make sure that our schools are safe, clean, healthy. I think that's very important. So I think that I would spend a lot of time trying to cultivate those relationships so that those partnerships are strong and that they're authentic. Is a big part of, when you're going to any community. And I think what's great about your community is that it's fairly small. And I think that it will become it will be a little bit easier to do that. So those are just some ways that I would try to engage in the community.
Why BMR?
So one of the things that I really enjoyed throughout this process, and it started with when I first learned about the position, is going online and trying to devour everything I could about BMR. And whether it was looking through curriculum work or whether it was looking at messages from your superintendent to seeing the great faces of your students on the website, I really truly was able to garner that it is a district that values not only the academic excellence piece, but also you care a lot about your students. And I don't think that's something that's everywhere. I really don't. I think that one of the things that I enjoy is working in a place where the people are authentic, that they are supportive, that they're really committed to creating these trusting relationships with one another to benefit our kids. And even through the process of when I was being interviewed by your students, their questions, you could just tell, were really coming from the heart, and that they really truly were great kids who really wanted to go on and do great things. And that's really what I'm all about. And that's really the work that I want to do. I want to partner with a district and with a school that really trusts people, really puts a lot of energy and a lot of talk into creating those positive relationships, because when that happens, it's completely magical. I think that everything comes together. So academic success, people feeling great about themselves, that's the place that I want to work.
Please convince us why you are the right person to lead our high school.
So a couple areas I think it's worth mentioning is, first, my experience. So I have, as I mentioned, been in education for 30 years. I was spent a great amount of time in the classroom, so I know how teachers navigate it. I also know how students navigate it. I think that I've also had the pleasure of working the full spectrum. So from students who are at the advanced placement level to students who have challenged with different needs. I think that that perspective is unique as well. So I think my experience in education is unique, and it's also varied, which I think enhances my ability to connect with students, families, as well as the staff. I also think that my education is something that has prepared me really well for this position. I'm not kidding when I say I'm a lifelong learner, and that's not just so I can check the box and get a degree. I think that all of my educational experience have made me a better educator, not only from an academic perspective, so understanding how teaching and learning works, but it's also helped me create a very empathetic mindset, a very growth mindset, in which I really feel that I have got a great education of what are some of those best practices to help students succeed. So that's another piece. But I also think from a personal perspective, I am a person who is really, really motivated by the idea of seeing students smile, feel good about themselves. One of the things that I take pride in as a principal is I'm incredibly available and visible to my students. My secretary often gets on me because there are students in my office almost on a regular basis. It drives her a little nuts, but I always say to her, that's a good thing. The kids wanting to see me in my office or wanting to say hello to me or eat lunch with me in the cafeteria at my table, that's a good thing, because that means that I've done a good enough job to create that relational trust. And so I'm able to help them in many different aspects. So whether it's working on their college, essay, or, helping them navigate a difficult situation at home, I am glad to do it. And it's the best part of my job. So my heart's into it. Every morning I will be in front of that school building, greeting the kids, checking in with them, making sure that they're happy and that they're healthy. And same with staff. I want the staff to feel that, especially during this really crazy time where I think staff are being challenged and worked really hard to be creative in a whole different venue that they've really haven't had a lot of exposure to, checking in with our staff, making sure that they're emotionally safe, that they're healthy, but they're also given the resources that they need to really navigate that is really important. So my heart, my education, and my experience, I think if you would allow me to be your principal, I think that would be a great partnership. And I think that we could do some amazing things.
So I'm not seeing any other questions. I will give it just a moment in case there's anyone else out there that has some last second thoughts. But in that time, if there's anything else that you would like to share, I'll turn the floor back over to you. If there's anything that we missed.
Yeah, no, I want to thank you. It's really strange doing this interview to a blob, a little logo of your school district. I feel that one of the things I love to do is connect on a personal level. So I can't see your faces, but I do hope that I've been able to convey to you an authentic feeling of really, really wanting to do good work for your students, for your staff, for your community. And I know that this is a really important decision. I know you have other candidates who you're looking at, and I really wish you the best, specifically as we go through this very tough time, because I think that now more than ever, we need somebody in the position that not only has the knowledge, but also has the capability to really connect with people on a personal level now more than ever. So thank you so much for having me here tonight. I feel incredibly honored, and I wish everybody a lot of good health as we navigate the rest of the school year, and I hope everybody stays safe. So thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us this evening, Gina.
All right, I'm going to hit the leave button. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Stay safe.
Take care. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully everyone has had the opportunity to have a quick break and is back joining us now. We are here with our final candidate for the evening, Ms. Donna Zanelli. And I will turn the floor over to Ms. Zanelli.
Good evening, everyone. I wish I could say it's a pleasure to meet you all, but I guess we're going to be a digital world for a little while longer. My name is Donna Zanelli. I am a resident of Woonsocket, Rhode Island. I have been in education since 1987. I started my career in Taunton, Massachusetts. In 1990, took a position in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and I pretty much stayed in the Rhode Island education system as a teacher, as a graduation by proficiency coordinator, and as an administrator up until about a year and a half ago, when I felt a call to go to Southbridge, Massachusetts, return to Massachusetts, and to become a curriculum coordinator in charge of science, technology, and engineering at Southbridge High School. And this year they put math and the arts under my title, but also moved me to associate principal because we had a dearth in administration. So I've been fulfilling that role. So a lot of times I get asked, why Woonsocket, why Rhode Island, why anything? I am the daughter of a United States Marine. I moved 14 times by the time I was 17, and my father and my mother decided to retire. We were living in North Carolina at the time, to the state of Rhode Island, where they were from, when I was a junior in high school. So I graduated Smithfield High School, and that's how I came to Rhode Island. I met a wonderful man in 1988, and he and I started dating. We got married in 1998, and he was from Woonsocket. So I moved home with him. I was living in Chepachet at the time. I had my own house, and I moved home with him. I am a wife. I am a mother. I have two boys, a 20-year-old who's at the University of Connecticut and an 18-year-old who will graduate high school this year. My face may be recognizable to some of you. I actually frequent the Blackstone community quite a bit. You'll see me at CVS Park and Shop. I'm familiar with the community, and I'm really excited that I have an opportunity to attempt to become the principal of a high school of students that I've gotten to know over the years as my children interacted with your students through the Karate Center, through parades, and through music functions at this, through the bands, the jazz bands and the marching band. So that's about all there is for me.
Okay, I'll start with some of our questions.
Okay.
Under your leadership, what do you envision for BMR in 5 years? As a parent of an 8th grader deciding between BMR and BVT, what could help him choose BMR?
Well, the first thing I foresee is a strengthened sense of community. You have a strong sense of community, but I want to make sure that all, based on what I've spoken to the children, I want to make sure the children feel safe, they feel challenged. I want to explore with the families and the faculty pathways. I was able to build pathways in Cumberland when I was there, and most recently in Southbridge, we started formulating an allied health pathway, hopefully working towards getting students certified in some allied health careers. Prior to leaving high school, one of the first things we did was the entire math, science, and I believe a few English teachers. I got them all certified as CPR instructors so we could start building the pathway so we could get CPR in the classroom and start working on a sports medicine class, which was going to be added to, which we were then going to add some other classes. And now we have QCC in the building, which is a local community college, which is offering classes with our students to give them college credit. So in 5 years, I would start looking for partnerships and pathways to be built to give our students that little edge above, to get them prepared to be college and career ready. If we can get certificates for students to attain, even better. And that's what I would look for in 5 years.
How do you engage students who are less interested in academics?
That's hard. My first question is why? You know, what is it that keeps them from being engaged? And I like to talk to kids and I like to listen to kids and get their opinions on things and find out where their interests lie. Sometimes they're not engaged because they don't understand or they're embarrassed or they don't feel they can do it. And I believe that every child can learn and every child can learn to high levels if you just give them a chance and give them the supports they need. So my first goal is to listen to the children and what do they need, and listen to the parents and what are they telling us that the child needs, and then try to find that thing that hooks them. Is it an elective? Is it a sport? Is it an after-school activity? And what can we do as a community, as a school community, to get the child hooked into education and to make them feel successful and to get them to be successful? Sometimes it's the small things. Sometimes it's the big things. But I'm willing to try anything to support a child, to make them feel successful, and to participate in the school and become successful at school and engaged.
Knowing the size of Blackstone Millville Regional High School, what ideas do you have to promote school spirit and instill school pride?
So that's kind of cool because that's actually something I love doing. So when I went to Southbridge, it's about the same size. And the school this year, in my new role this year, it's kind of sad. Kids are remote, they're hybrid. I have some that are 2 days a week, some that are 4 days a week, and it's hard. So we started creating small Spirit Week events where students could do scavenger hunts, where the faculty dressed up in silly outfits or wore crazy hair, and just have events that, you know, everybody could try and participate in. We also did things in my other districts. We did things like we had canned food drives to help the community. We had breakfast with Santa. I actually, in order to help the school drama club a few years ago in Warwick, they were putting on a play and they were putting on The Wizard of Oz. So the kids came to me, a couple of the kids came to me and said, Miss Nellie, would you please be the Wicked Witch of the West? And I just looked at them and said, typecasting? I was the assistant principal, typecasting? So I took on the role with the understanding that the whole drama club would keep it quiet and nobody would know until the day I stepped out on stage. And unfortunately, I understand there's still a YouTube video out there of me acting very badly, but being the Wicked Witch of the West to get everybody excited and to get the kids involved. And it became quite the thing. I greet every kid in the morning. I love meeting the kids out in the community. I love listening to the kids with their ideas of what a great spirit idea would be. I'm not beyond dressing in costume if they ask me to. I'm not beyond, doing crazy hair, school colors, being in parades with them, anything it takes. If it means driving by homes and yelling out my car window, getting excited because they're graduating high school, which happened last year because of COVID, then that's what I'll do. I believe in going to every event that exists as long as I'm physically capable of being at every event. It's hard to be sometimes two places at once, but I want to be that person in the audience cheering them on, getting excited for them. Going to the Stadium Theater to see the jazz band, or watching a play put on, hearing students in a debate. All of that is important for me. Go to all the athletic events I can possibly go to. And more importantly, I have and still believe it's important to go to the away events too, so they know that somebody's there besides their parent cheering them on and excited for them and bringing that spirit with them to these events.
So we know that some of our students leave to go to other programs for academics. However, we also have many students that are choosing to leave because of sports. How or what would you do to help strengthen our sports teams? Have you ever dealt with this situation?
Yeah, we in Warwick, they decided middle school sports was something they wanted to do after we brought the sixth grade up to the junior high. And it was really hard because middle school kids didn't understand if they could join wrestling, and they weren't sure about playing different sports, and it was interesting. So in a lot of cases, I met with students. I actually became a notary public to make sure I could notarize all the forms, made sure all the forms were accessible to parents. I hosted nights where parents could come in and talk to the coaches and understand that, it was really important to become involved. I became a fixture at a lot of the games so that the kids could see me and the parents could talk to me. I supported the coaches in any way I could to ensure that they knew I was there to support them. And in some cases, I had to get a couple grants and a couple donations to make sure we could supply the equipment necessary to have the children succeed. I'm probably the only school administrator that was often seen at track meets, which cross country can be interesting because they fire the gun, the kids run, and they're gone. And you're waiting for them to come back. But I did it because it was important that the kids saw me there cheering them on. And when I found out that we didn't have a tent for our students in Woonsocket, and I happened to go to a track meet, and because my husband teaches in Woonsocket, and I found out they didn't have a tent. So I found some donors who were willing to purchase a tent. And we were able to, and then I found out my own students in Warwick didn't have a tent. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. So I found a couple more donors and got them a tent, because in cross country and track and field, sometimes out in the sun, it could be too hot for the kids. So those were some of the things I did. I try my best to ensure that, as much as sports are involved with trying out, etc., I want to make sure all students feel included. 2 schools I've been in, we've created unified sports programs while I was there to make sure that even the students in the special needs classroom actually had an opportunity to play sports, and students who wouldn't necessarily go for the basketball team but really loved basketball would help, be part of that mentoring program. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm an advocate for sports. I'm also an advocate for arts and extracurriculars. It's just a matter of finding creative ways to make sure we can fund them so that we're not taxing the school budget, which I am all for.
I know you spoke about this briefly. The high school has been working closely with Project Lead the Way and our neighboring local school districts to expand our career readiness programs and opportunities. What is your experience in establishing and implementing career pathways for students?
So when I was in Cumberland, which feels like many years ago now, the history teacher came to me, and I was kind of new to pathways, and he said, I heard about this thing, pathways, and I'd like to build a pathway. And I'm like, okay, what do you want to build? Because I was new to the process, and I got quite the education those 2 years. He explained to me that he had an idea, because we had some courses that we were already taking in school, He was teaching criminal justice, and another teacher was teaching sociology. And he said, I'd really like a law pathway, which I said, okay. So we ended up getting Roger Williams University involved. And they helped us construct a law pathway where our students would take 3 or 4 courses. I think it started with 3 courses when we started, ended up being 4 courses, in addition to their regular high school courses. Then they built a portfolio, and as long as they maintained a B average and built their portfolio and presented their portfolio to the a committee from Roger Williams, they would get credits, college credits from Roger Williams. Now, since I've been in Southbridge, I actually attended the STEM conference last year before COVID for Project Lead the Way, and they do a lot of work with college and career readiness. So that was my introduction to them. And I've actually also worked with Mass Insight with using their resources to strengthen my science program, which is how we started talking to QCC to start coming in and start working on an allied health professional pathway. So I've built a pathway in Cumberland. I'm started the pathway process in Southbridge. I've got a team of people. It takes a village. You have to get a team of people, parents. You have to get, I try to get universities involved, try to get a cooperating university, whether it be Framingham State, Worcester State, whoever's local that we can find. I'm not above crossing borders, and try to get, and like in Rhode Island, they call it the early enrollment program or concurrent enrollment. So students can take, like we're doing at QCC in Southbridge, students are taking the class in Southbridge High School, but they're actually getting QCC credits, which is really fascinating. It's new for them. What do we have in our school catalog and that we are teaching that we can apply to a career pathway? And what else do we need to incorporate into our offerings to ensure students get the credit they need to follow that pathway? I do believe that all pathways need to have a certificate at the end of them so that we have something to show for it, so the children can go out and do the college and career piece, whether it be an LPN certificate, and that's just in my head from the Allied Pathway, credits from Roger Williams University, or in the case of Southbridge from QCC. I think they're getting 8 credits from QCC.
So this actually rolls in pretty well. You had a former student from West Warwick High School that is excited to see you here as a final candidate, which rolls into my question. How will you track and monitor the success of our alumni, and what will you do to support them?
So I really believe in contact. I do my best to try and keep in touch with students. I do lose them over the years. You tend to lose them, but I've been lucky enough where I've been in positions where we've been able to send out surveys. And the guidance counselors, I've worked with some amazing guidance counselors that can actually keep a database where we can find out what the kids are doing. And in the case of when I was in Warwick, I had students who graduated from Warwick Veterans Memorial High School, and they went on to Rhode Island College for the nursing program. And we discovered, or they came back to me, and I was the chemistry teacher at the time in Warwick, and they came back to me and they were very upset because they weren't successful. So I said, really? Huh. So I took the class that they were complaining about to find out what I wasn't teaching, what wasn't I covering, what did I need to cover to ensure they succeeded, because that seemed to be the point. And then I would tutor them after school. I would allow them to come back and I would tutor them. I still do that now, even in my current school. I have students who have gone on to higher education, and they have gaps in their math. COVID did a wonderful job about creating gaps in math, and I find myself sometimes helping them out, tutoring. I've helped students who've wanted to go into the military when they were afraid they were going to fail a class or something. I don't mind staying after school and saying, okay, well, let's, like a homework help center. What do you need to work on? Let's work on it. Let's make a plan. Sometimes students get very overwhelmed by the amount of work they get, or they get behind the 8 ball and they just don't know how to. My own kids do that. They get behind the 8 ball and they just can't see the other side. So it's okay. Let's break it down into pieces. What can we do? Let's make a plan. What can I help you with? What can I reteach? What can I explain? Do you need me to edit an essay? And I don't mind, because I'm very passionate about the students that I interact with. They need to succeed, and they need to know that we're there for them even after they leave us. We're still that place that they can come back to and have those honest conversations with us. And I am thrilled to help them any little way I can. And if I can't help them, I will find someone smarter than me that can. I don't have a problem doing that, because I believe the children, and I know it's corny, but children are our future. They are our greatest natural resource, and we have to cultivate them and support them and help them no matter what as they transition from our school into their next phase of their lives.
What do you see as your role in the towns of Blackstone and Millville? Can you share some evidence from past and previous roles that highlight examples of this?
So, being an administrator in a school, you become almost the face of the school in a lot of ways, especially of a high school. So, I foresee my role as the person who's at the parade with the students. I see myself at Park and Shop having parents stop me to talk to me. I see myself walking onto this football field, not on the field, but the stands, sitting down and having conversations with the people around me. I see myself at the Stadium Theater cheering on our jazz band. And if in past jobs, I've actually got on buses and rode buses home with students who needed somebody on the bus because mom wanted to talk to them. And I've had to have the bus driver take me home, and the person couldn't come to the school. I've also been the administrator that when a parent was struggling and contacted the school, I drove out to the house to see how I could help because they were struggling and they needed some help. And I was there, and I brought whatever information and resources I could with me to make sure that we could assist them. I'm the administrator that wants to hold canned food drives. I've gone so far as to attend church services in the communities that I've worked in to get to know the people better, to understand the community, and to help in any way I can. I'm willing to volunteer. I am willing. I have worked in positions where I have volunteered at various events, whether it be an e-waste event, or actually volunteered at a food bank. I volunteered at various sporting events. They needed people to, run the gate because they didn't have enough boosters. So I've done that. I am a music booster for the Woonsocket Music Department. When my son graduates this year, I think they're going to retire me finally after 7 years. But I want to be a PTA. I've been a PTA member in the various schools I've worked in, and I would do that again if there is an organization. If it means in my position in Warwick at the middle school, the students there were some students that needed to stay after school because the parents couldn't have them come home. There was no one there to be there for them. And when you have sixth graders, that can be tough. So I actually started a knitting circle. I'm an avid knitter. So I actually started a knitting circle so the students could take the late bus home and their parents can meet them more easily at the bus stop. So I held a knitting circle. I actually even created a mentoring group for some at-risk young men who just needed a place one day a week to sit down and air their grievances and talk about things and give them some extra help. And I've done that too. So I'm willing to be a volunteer, a mentor, and an active member of the community. My husband lived in Millville for many years with his mother until we got married, and then she passed. And then, so I'm familiar with the community. I'm familiar with, and I probably recognize my face from the community. Usually I'm in a ponytail and I'm in a ponytail sweatshirt, running to the dog groomer, or to the CVS or the, but I'm sure some of you have even seen me at the Spoke House having dinner with friends of mine, trying to make sure I give back to the community that I'm right next door to and I'm part of.
How do you engage parents, families, and the greater community in the education of our students?
The first thing I do is try to get to know them. And it's so hard to get to know them in COVID, but we've been pretty creative, from home visits to open Zoom nights where I am now, to, as I said, attending religious services whenever possible. going into coffee shops and just being that visible person. I want people to get to know me, and I want to get to know them, and I want to be open enough that they will come and talk to me. A lot of times I'm not great at social media, but sometimes somebody's better at social media than I am. I even started the first Cumberland Twitter account way back when Twitter first started. Yeah, I'm that old. And we started communicating with parents that way. I have no problem. People talk about an open door policy. The reality is, it is a reality with me. I have students who will email me all times, day and night, and I'm available. And I tell people I will get back to you within 12 to 24 hours, the latest. I hold open office hours because of COVID. It's hard to have people come in and have coffee hours or evening meetings or daytime meetings, whatever. People can come in to meet the principal and have conversations, which I've done. So I actually have virtual office hours where people can, where the link is sent out and people and students or parents can come and reach out to me. I had office hours last week where a student dialed in and the mother came right in with her and said, "Oh, can I talk to you?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'm here. I'm happy to talk to you." So I would hopefully I foresee COVID ending. It's my hope and my dream. I would be able to go back to having those, if not weekly, monthly, whatever the community needed, meetings where people could reach out to me. And in addition to having those more informal times of being out in the community and being seen where people can come up and talk to me.
How do you go about moving people off of positions they've held for years or seem adamant about doing things the way they've always been done?
So you have to honor people for the historical knowledge that exists. And it takes a lot of listening, and it takes looking at the data, and it takes including them in coming up with a plan. If what we're doing isn't working and the data shows it's not working, whether it be hard data, anecdotal data, student interviews, take your list of what you want the data to be, then I have found it always works to sit down and have an adult conversation about, okay, this is what the data says. And I understand, and make sure you understand that historical perspective because it's important. I'm working in a district now where we have very little historical anything. So we've had to create things and all we get is, well, we used to do it that way, but nobody really has the historical perspective of why we used to do it. So that's been a long, hard road of, okay, well, I understand why we used to do it, but why? And when they try and explain it, I'm like, okay, but this is what the data shows me. So how can we together create a solution or rethink about how we want to move forward? Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's the fear of failure. And you have to make sure people understand it's going to be messy. When we change things, it's going to be messy, but that's okay. As long as we're willing to talk about it, as long as we're willing to adjust it as we need, and as long as we're able to admit, okay, it didn't work. If it doesn't work, if it works, great, it works. If it needs to be tweaked, it needs to be tweaked. And if it doesn't work, we tried. And well, let's try something new. The other piece is being willing to think outside the box. When you are in a brainstorming session with a group of people, sometimes just listening to their crazy ideas comes up with such a fantastic thought, like, oh my God, I never thought of that. And we can run with it. And that's the exciting part. As long as everybody comes to the table and we understand and we're transparent as to why a change is being made. That's the other piece, transparency. Because if we're not transparent, if it's done in a bubble, there's always suspicion. But as long as you're honest with people, look, this is why we're doing it. This is what we think we want to do. This is how we want to do it. And this is the steps we're going to take to get us there. And it's for the good of the kids. It's always about what's best for the children, because the children are our first priority.
I believe you referenced this question earlier, but why us and why BMRHS?
So I was really happy through my career being a teacher for over 20 years. And then I transitioned into the graduation by proficiency coordinator position at Warwick Veterans. Rhode Island did not go the single test route. We went through a proficiency route. So we had senior project, portfolio and comprehensive course assessments. So I worked at the state level, and I worked at, in the high school that I was assigned to create that program, to create that graduation requirement. It was through the mentorship of the principal at the time. His name was Steve Mitchell. And he said, you might want to think about administration. So I got my degree, and I became an assistant principal in Cumberland. And I loved it. I loved being an assistant principal. I loved being an assistant principal in Warwick. Climate and culture was something I really enjoyed. And I didn't want to take the step to full principal unless it was a school that, one, was close to my house. Let's be honest. I want to be there 24/7. I want to be an integral part of the community. And it was a school that I felt I could grow with, I felt would grow with me, and I felt the parents were involved and invested in the school. So when my time in Rhode Island was up, basically, I've worked as long as I can in Rhode Island for the retirement system to matter. I saw the posting for Southbridge, and it was a curriculum position, and I have a background in curriculum, and I went, wow, that's really cool. I'd like to try it. Unfortunately, due to a shifting in administration, the superintendent asked me to take over the associate principal's position, which means I pretty much became the building principal. And I realized, I can't be here as much as I want to be. Then just on a whim, it was over Christmas break, I saw the posting for Blackstone Millville, and I remembered, and some of you have heard me say this before, you're going to laugh. I remember dating my husband, and we were dating. And one of the first things he did was he took me on a date to my alma mater, which is Boston University, for the Battle of the Bands. And I remember the marching band coming out from Blackstone Millville. My husband was so excited. It's the only reason he wanted to go. It was to see them. And I remember them coming out, and they played the theme for Batman. And I remember the trailer coming out and the parents being dressed as penguins coming out to assist on the field. And I turned to him and I looked and I said, oh my God, that's a school where the parents care. That's amazing to me. And I've always wished I could work in your district. Unfortunately, the positions never came up that I could fit into. So over Christmas, when I saw that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I could be the principal that I always envisioned I'd want to be, that member of the community, that person that was there for all the events, that didn't have to worry about, was I not going to make it in time? Was I going to hit traffic and not make it back in time? Could I run home and throw on some jeans and a sweatshirt because it was going to be cold on the football field tonight? Could I make it to the basketball game in time because I had a meeting and I had to be back from the meeting? And I feel like all of a sudden it was like, this was a gift to come to the community that I've come to love Blackstone and Millville. I'm such a part of the community now. I've met the children through the years, through my own children, through them being part of the karate, a local karate school that actually had a lot of children from Blackstone Millville. And through them, I got to meet them at the Autumn Fest parades even more, and got to meet their families, which was even more fun. So I feel like I've been part of the community, but I just want to make that much more formal. And I want to work for the students. I want to work for the families. And I want to make Blackstone Millville the best school in the area.
So I do not see any more questions right now, but as we wait for just a moment, I will give you an opportunity to convince us that you are the right person to lead our high school.
I have always believed that administrative positions are about the fit. And if you want someone who's going to be passionate about your students' success, passionate about being there for the kids, passionate about ensuring the best education can be provided for our children and a part of the community, someone who you're going to get tired of seeing at all the events once COVID's over, then I'm the person you want, because I believe that as the principal of a high school, it is my duty, my responsibility to be an integral part of the community and to be an integral part of what's happening in town, because I can't do my best work unless I know I'm part of something bigger than me. And I am one of those people that works, I throw 120% of my life into it, which is why I had to wait until my children were older and I was going to be an empty nester, because I am a wife and mom. And I wanted to make sure that my kids had me as a mom first. But now it's time for me to live that part of my life where I can get excited and do things and work in a district where I can be part of the community and part of the school, because I think that they're very, very interconnected. So if you want someone who's really passionate about that, who wants to be part of the community, who wants to spend the next 5 to 10 years working for your kids, then that's who I am. And I would be thrilled. It would be a dream come true for me to become part of your community.
Well, thank you, Donna. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. I also would like to thank everyone who is watching us via live stream. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. And I'd also like to remind our parents that we are going to be putting a link into the comments section. If you could please click on the link and take our survey, that would be very helpful if you've watched our presentations this evening. So, Donna, once again, I thank you, and I hope that you have a wonderful evening.
Stay safe, everyone. Stay warm. And I hope you have much success in the future if I'm not your candidate.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Have a good night.
Good night.